Imagine a life that doesn't just survive pressure, but grows stronger because of it. A heart that still loves when it's easy to quit. A faith that doesn't sound sincere, but proves it is. That's the kind of life James is describing when he writes, "Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because when they have stood the test, they will receive the crown of life, which God has promised to those who love him." James circles back to where he started, trials. But now, he's not only talking about enduring them, he's holding out a promise. The word blessed doesn't mean cheerful through pain. It's the deep assurance of God's favor, the quiet joy that comes from knowing your faith has held steady when everything else was shaking. But James isn't just contrasting what fades with what endures. He's exposing the difference between appearance and authenticity. Just one verse earlier, he described the rich person as a flower in full bloom, beautiful for a moment, but already withering under the sun. It looked alive, but it was temporary. Now James turns the image inward. He's not only warning about wealth, he's naming a deeper danger, faith that looks full on the outside, but is quietly hollow within. He's confronting divided loyalty, the subtle compromises that thin out integrity over time. Faith that confesses love for God, but still keeps a few pieces back for itself. And to make that point clear, James borrows a word from everyday life that captures this idea perfectly. A word from the world of craftsmanship and trade, where what looked valuable had to be weighed to see if it was real. In the ancient world, people sometimes shaved thin layers of silver or gold off coins to keep for themselves. It was a small compromise, just a few shavings here and there, but over time the coin lost its true weight. It still bore the emperor's image, but it was no longer whole. It looked genuine, yet it had been diminished inside. That's the picture James is leaning on. Faith can do the same thing, holding on to its outside form while losing its inner substance through quiet compromise or divided loyalty. So cities appointed officials called dokimos, testers who proved what was genuine, weighing every coin to expose what was hollow and to affirm what was whole. That's the word James uses here. When he writes, having stood the test, the Greek phrase here is dokimos ginomenos, literally having become approved or found genuine. James is saying that the person who perseveres through trials becomes what they claim to be. The testing doesn't destroy faith, it reveals integrity. It shows whether we are whole or divided, steadfast or compromised. This is faith with substance, faith that holds its weight, not just a confession of belief, but a life that bears the full imprint of the one whose image it carries. Maybe you've felt that refining lately, pressure exposing what's real in you and what's only surface metal. That's not failure, it's formation. It's the Spirit's way of making you dokimos, authentic, undivided, and true. And what happens when a life holds its full weight? When faith resists quiet compromise and endures with integrity? James tells us they will receive the crown of life. The word stephanos doesn't describe royal power, but recognition, an honor placed on those who have endured with integrity. In ancient games, it was a wreath woven for those whose efforts proved genuine, triumphant, not pretended. Paul uses the same image in 1 Corinthians 9:24 and 25. Do you not know that in a race all the runners run, but only one receives the prize? So run that you may obtain it. Every athlete exercises self-control in all things. They do it to receive a perishable crown, but we an imperishable one. The stephanos, is not the crown of status, it's the crown of substance. It's not for the fastest, but for the faithful, not for the perfect, but for the proven. That's why Clement of Alexandria once said, "No effort, no crown." Grace doesn't remove the need for perseverance, it empowers it. The early church understood that clearly. To paraphrase Theonas of Alexandria, he encouraged believers, bear all things for the sake of your Creator. Endure, rise above, and overcome, that you may win Christ. Great are these duties, and they require effort, but he who strives will be crowned. The fathers understood that perseverance wasn't about perfection. It was about refusing compromise. Because the stephanos, the crown, isn't handed to those who coast. It's promised to those who keep showing up, who stumble yet rise again, who love God enough to stay in the race when others give up. James ends the verse with the reason behind the reward, which God has promised to those who love him. That's what it all comes down to. Not just endurance in general, but faithfulness rooted in love, undivided, uncompromised love for God. Love keeps you in the race when reason says stop. Love keeps you standing when others sit down. Love keeps your heart whole when fear tempts you to fracture. This is why the crown isn't just for finishing a race. It's for refusing to walk away from the one who called you. James shows us the crown of life isn't a shiny object handed out at the end of a struggle. It's the life of God, eternal, full, relational, already formed in those who love him. So if you're in the middle of a fire, if the trial hasn't lifted, if your prayers feel like silence, remember, you're not being graded, you're being formed. You're not earning, you're enduring. Every time you say yes to love, yes to truth, yes to God in the midst of pain, you're becoming the kind of person who carries real weight. Every moment you resist compromise and remain loyal to him, you're being restored to the integrity you were made to carry. You're becoming the kind of person who receives the crown, the kind of faith that's been tested and found genuine. That's the promise James is holding before us. Not a reward for surviving hardship, but a life being shaped into something real, a soul made whole through endurance and love. But what exactly is that life? What does it mean to receive the crown of life? Well, in the next session, we'll explore how the Bible defines that life, not as escape from this world, but as resurrection within it, a life that begins in love, endures through trials, and ends in glory. So come back and check out session 2 on James 1:12.